All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to paint a really vivid picture of a terrifying, completely forgotten epoch. I want you to travel back with me, way back, to a time long before the Great Reset of 12,800 years ago. We're diving into the recovered forensic history of a primeval world that, honestly, is almost impossible to wrap our modern minds around. Imagine this unfolding like a massive, cinematic historical record playing out right in front of you, charting the rise and the incredibly violent fall of the most advanced, uncompromising civilization to ever rule the Earth.
To really grasp this, you've got to completely forget our modern timeline. Seriously, throw out everything you know about the rise of standard human empires, medieval kings, and those chaotic squabbles over borders. As the ancient Hornblende tablets record, the world was once governed by a totally different kind of hierarchy, a mathematical, primeval order of preternatural majesty. They didn't rule through messy human emotions or political rivalries. No, they ruled through absolute, terrifying geometric alignment.
Which brings us to Section 1, Masters of the First Dawn. So to understand this era, you have to visualize the sheer physical presence of these beings. And according to the anatomical scrolls of Alaus, we are definitely not just talking about tall humans here. Picture an alabaster giant standing 7 cubits tall. They possessed this severe, elongated symmetry, kind of like a basalt column. And if you could watch them move, which must have been a sight, you wouldn't see red blood pulsing beneath their skin. Instead, right beneath that translucent pallor, there is a faint, continuous flow of a circulatory fluid pumping just like liquid silver.
But you know what the most unsettling feature was? Their eyes. They had these immense, round orbs of uniform silver gray, completely devoid of a pupil or an iris, and they never blinked. Primitive tribes actually believed a sovereign could look through solid stone directly into your heart. But the real horror wasn't how they looked, it was how they thought. They lacked all human passion, literally zero anger, zero mercy. They operated with the icy, crystalline clarity of a geometric engine, viewing the entire universe simply as a massive problem of mathematical alignment.
Let's get into Section 2, the architecture of command.
Watch as solid stone melts right in your mind's eye. See, the sovereigns didn't use chisels and ropes. What ancient humanity called magic was actually just the rigorous application of acoustic resonance. First, they'd blow these massive phonic horns made of bell bronze. That subaudible acoustic thrum would physically dissolve solid granite into a thick, moving, primordial paste. Then they simply poured the slurry into wooden casings, almost like liquid mud. Finally, a single strike from a silver tuning fork. That high-frequency tone instantly froze the slurry back into a hyperdense mass. This kinetic, almost animated process of slurry casting explains exactly why we find 80-ton monolithic blocks today with absolutely zero gap tolerances.
This wasn't magic, guys. They build literal, analog, high technology to regulate the planet's tectonic and magnetic currents. Imagine the Black Spire of Lendor drawing telluric fire up from deep beneath the ocean just to power a magnetic engine. Or picture the Whispering Terraces out in the High Mountain Pass. They were designed so perfectly that a single spoken whisper could be amplified and broadcast to thousands of laborers in the valleys below. And then you have the Vault of the Astrologer, which was specifically engineered to trap the 4 Hz hum of the Earth, keeping its occupant in this indefinite state of acoustic hibernation.
And the staggering reality here? There were exactly 44 of these stations. 44 massive lithic anchors systematically locked into the globe's telluric nodes. They weren't building these things where it was convenient to set up a farm. No. They were deliberately constructed on the invisible intersecting lines of the Earth's magnetic and seismic currents. The entire planet was basically wired as a single, humming, integrated machine.
Moving on to Section 3, Legends of the Savants.
The rulers of this vast network operated on a pretty terrifying spectrum. On one extreme, you've got Malaric, the Unblinking. This guy didn't even bother sending armies to crush rebellions. He simply stood in his black obsidian tower, perched over an active volcano, struck an immense bronze bell, and let the polyphonic sound wave wash over the valleys. He literally melted rebel fortresses back into liquid slurry while the inhabitants were still standing inside. Wild, right? Then, on the flip side, you have the arch-phantasmus Morcator. His immense intellect eventually collapsed into pure paranoia. He constructed a sanctuary entirely lined with mercury mirrors to distort space and time, and slowly sank his entire manse into the deep alluvial mud just to isolate himself from the world.
But here's the thing. The Savants couldn't be bothered to actually converse with normal humans. So they needed stewards. Enter the High Mediators. These were the physical hands of the empire, men like the scribe Kaspari, who was taken as a child and taught the old High dialect.
These mediators wore silver-threaded robes and carried these crazy ivory staffs tipped with tuning forks that could literally paralyze a man. They engineered religious folklore for one simple reason: to ensure the primitive masses maintain the acoustic machinery. If a monument needed salt to keep its walls from degrading, the mediators didn't teach them the chemistry behind it, they just invented a holy pilgrimage requiring tribes to leave salt offerings to appease a sleeping earth serpent.
That brings us to Section 4, the Night of Liquid Stone.
Now, I want you to witness the violent, kinetic climax of the 12,800 BP reset. Folklore ominously remembers it as the Night of Liquid Stone. Picture the sky literally turning the color of bruised iron. In a single night, the North Star, which was the absolute anchor of their entire geometric civilization, violently migrates across the horizon. The Earth's celestial canopy suddenly and violently twists right upon its axis.
The protective telluric network completely shatters. Inside those high towers, the massive silver wheels of the great astrolabes grind together and tear themselves apart. Without those 44 stations stabilizing the planet's magnetic core, the crust violently adjusts. High mountain glaciers melt in a matter of hours because of the intense atmospheric heat. This unleashes a catastrophic mud-laden flood that drowns the corrupted kingdoms almost instantly.
And what exactly do the Savants do during all of this? Well, in an act of chilling, unhurried precision, the silver-eyed masters simply seal the vaults. They don't fight the cataclysm at all. They know it's mathematically inevitable. They methodically dismantle the great astrolabes, plug their subterranean galleries with poured diorite, and quietly withdraw into their deep, mica-lined redoubts. They completely abandon humanity and their devoted high mediators to the deluge.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Echoes of the Endless River.
See, the Tri-Zone Council's research proves this isn't just some fairy tale or a bit of primitive superstition, it is a cyclical cosmic law. Time isn't a straight line. It's the endless river. It's a looping current that brings inevitable periodic cosmic cleansings. The Great Eclipse wasn't the first reset, and mathematically speaking, it definitely won't be the last.
Which means we are simply humanity 2.0. The folklore calls us the shattered shards of the second creation, living ignorantly right inside the ruined, fragmented machinery of a primeval world. Every myth we have about magic is really just a distorted memory of their analog high technology. Even today, deep in the wilderness, silent monastic orders are still out there, trying to piece together the master blueprint. Because those 44 stations, they never disappeared. They're still out there, buried, with their subaudible hum vibrating right beneath the Earth's crust.
So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. If everything we know is just a crude settlement built on top of their slumbering, massive geometric engines, what exactly happens to us when the endless river completes its current loop? What happens when the alignment returns and the sovereigns of the First Dawn finally unlock their mica vaults to reclaim their world? Think about that the next time you look up at the migrating stars or feel a sudden unexplained tremor beneath your feet.